Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. This time, I'd like to talk to you about some common misconceptions and myths that are out there in general about diversity in the workplace and so forth. So, this is in your textbook, page 3. It's the Self Awareness Activity 1.1. Each chapter in our textbook has a self awareness activity like this. The author throws out these questions, a variety of them each time. They're meant to be asked true, false, but they aren't all that cut and dried. And she doesn't really list the answers for you other than it's in the material of each chapter. I like to look at each chapter's questions like this because they're usually typical stereotypes that many people believe. And it's a good place to start understanding the material of each chapter as well. So, for the first chapter, when we're talking really about the basics of understanding diversity in our workplace and so forth, let's just hit a few of these and see what we think. Normally in class, I would walk around with my textbook and I would ask you true or false, and we would have a slight discussion. But in this case, I think if I just discuss them for you and what I think and what I have heard students kick back to me, then we'll come out okay. The first one, true or false? The majority of employees entering the workplace are white men. Well, certainly this is not true. It is a topic I will cover in this chapter later on. But what we find is women of all types are the largest group entering the workplace, period. And even if we add together the white men and the non-white men who are entering the workplace, they don't even come close percentage-wise to the number of women who are entering the workplace. Number two, true or false? Women who work full-time now make about as much as their male counterparts. Well, I think most of you now know that this is not true. This is completely false. We can find jobs, of course, in places in the country where women are making slightly more than men doing the same jobs. But generally, if we add up all the wages that women make and all the hours doing the same jobs as men, doing the same hours and the same jobs, we find that women are making about one-fourth less. Um, and certainly, if you're a woman of a minority group of some type, you will make possibly even less, more of a difference between you and what a male counterpart might make in the same job, doing the same work. So this one is completely false. Number three, true or false? Minorities are fairly well represented at all levels of management these days. If you've taken any business classes at all, you know this is completely false. In fact, women and minorities, whether you're including men or women both, make up about only 5% of the top companies in our country. And this is pretty much true around the world. There are small breakthroughs and have been over the last decade or so where a number of women have risen to become CEOs and so forth. But still, they are a small minority compared to the Euro-American men, which is to say white men, still hold the dominant position in our culture, and they control most of the wealth and they control most of the powerful companies. Number four, true or false? To relate well to people from diverse groups, I should first look at how they are different. This is really a wrong approach. It's false. We don't want to look at how people are different from each other. If we want to understand people, if we want to have good people skills, communication skills, we want to become culturally savvy, we want to bridge the gaps between us and different ways of thinking, then we look for commonalities. We look for all the things that we share, that all humans share. And so there are many things on a global basis we could say that all human groups share. And that gives you a basis to start somewhere. We already know that only less than 1/10 of 1% of our human DNA accounts for the physical differences. Well, if we want to see if we can understand the culture, it's certainly a little bit more complicated than that. So we look for things we can identify with. For instance, in all cultures, people generally celebrate their birthday. If someone dies in the family, there are funeral rites of some type, and there's some sort of mourning that is acceptable for society to go through, and so forth. Um, we have holidays unique to our own cultures, and so forth. Um, and so we do share many things around the world. We have families, we get married, we believe in religion, most people, and some don't. But we do have so many commonalities that are out there that that's the way to become culturally savvy, is to start focusing on commonalities. It gives you a place to start a conversation, after all. And then you find out through these conversations that maybe you are connected a little more deeply to other people of different types than you would have ever thought of. Okay, number 5, true or false? Few people hold biases and stereotypes about minorities these days. Well, certainly, if you don't understand that that is false, then you have not been paying attention to the real world around you. Right now, we have a resurgence of white supremacy and white nationalism in our country. Uh, and it's not a few people. It sometimes is very scary to think that about 30% of the country holds a lot of racist sort of views, that they believe in white nationalism and supremacy and so forth. Now, I can't really say that's an exact figure, but it does seem to reassert itself an awful lot. Um, and it's not just about minorities, it's biases of all types. Because again, diversity is more than just ethnicity. So people hold biases and stereotypes about just everything, from our appearance to our height, to our weight, to our apparent beauty or lack of it, and so forth. And so people do tend to be judgmental and hold various stereotypes. And this is not limited to any one culture on earth. It seems to be the human condition. And of course, we aren't born that way. Uh, we learn these things through culture and through the way we are raised and the influences that we encounter during our lives. The sixth and final self-awareness statement here is true or false. The major payoff for managing diversity is contributing to social responsibility. Well, that's sort of an iffy one, whether or not you could argue that maybe it's not the major payoff, but it certainly is a payoff. That if you manage diversity right, if you treat people with respect and human dignity, you certainly are setting an example. That's the way managers act. That's the way normal people act, caring people. And that does contribute to social responsibility. Now, whether or not that's the major payoff or not could probably be argued, but we would certainly, I think, agree that one of the big payoffs is this notion that we are setting the right example. We are doing the things that we think are correct in our society. Okay, folks, that's all I wanted to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.